Welcome to the We Heal for All podcast. My name is Liz Moyer Benferhat. What happens to a person whose job it is to sit day after day with other people's pain? And what might that teach the rest of us about living in a world that brings us face to face with so much suffering without ever being taught how to process it? I'm joined today by the one, the only, my husband, Dr. Anis Benferhat, a healing-centered therapist and psychiatrist here in New York City, to talk about what it's actually like as a clinician and as a practitioner to be so close to other people's pain day in and day out. Like, what does that do to him personally as he supports others and seeks to help? And what kind of things does he do for himself to support what he witnesses, what he absorbs, in order to stay healthy, stay present, continue to be of service in the way that he feels called? Welcome, Anis. Thank you for being here and doing this with me.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and our boy Woodrow here is here too.
Yeah.
Hi, Woodrow. So I wanted to do this. I was thinking about this conversation and getting us together to do this again because I was recently doing a deep dive into the immigration detention centers here in the US. I was doing it for some work, so I was really immersing myself in the research and articles and interviews of people, and especially loved ones who have family members in some of the more human rights violating. We laugh so we don't cry. But yeah, like alligator Alcatraz and just the absolutely horrific conditions of these detention centers. And afterwards, as I was going about the rest of my day and taking care of Lila, cleaning the house, I noticed how things kept popping up for me, right? Like images from the article kept popping up. This cycle of fear, rage, helplessness, wanting to act kept circulating through me. And it really felt like I was holding something, like I was continuing to hold something from diving deep into a topic, diving deep into a reality. And it made me think about you and your work. You are a healing-centered psychiatrist and psychotherapist. And so really the way that you work with people is through attunement. It's through relationality, it's through presence. You're not just a blank slate for people. You really walk with people in their suffering step by step. And just knowing you, knowing your training, and also knowing you as a person, I know how much you have needed to and have developed for yourself ways to process, what you understandably walk away with, the ways that you're impacted by what you witness and support in these sessions. And clinicians more generally, right, they expect to be impacted by their patients, right? They're trained to be able to do so. They're trained to be able to process it. They have supervision. And, here in this world that we live in, everyday folks are now, who aren't clinicians, right, who aren't really supported in that way, are really absorbing and taking in and witnessing more and more pain, more and more suffering, more and more tragedy without collective containers or language or support to be able to process it or work with it. So maybe we could just start with a broad question of seeing patients day after day or even within a given day. And these are patients who, have PTSD, complex trauma, are navigating really challenging experiences in their personal life, in their past life. If you'd be open to sharing, how does it impact you?
Yeah, well, it really, of course, it varies, by the specifics of the day and of the specific stuff that might come up. But there's a real weight, there can be like a real heaviness to like being with someone's heaviest stuff. Not that every session is like that, but a lot of times that's what we're there to do. So there can be like just feeling being in it with them, just feeling the weight of it together, not necessarily trying to fix it, but just kind of so they're not so alone with it. There can be, the compassion part of it and just almost like feeling pain for them as opposed to feeling what they're feeling, but like feeling this aching for them. There can be helplessness, if there's nothing I can actually do to help. But that's where kind of reframing it to like just being there with them sometimes is the most powerful thing that we can do. And that we don't actually have to have some brilliant solution, but just bringing the presence provides a way forward. And then there can be this sense of injustice, things that happen to people that feel so unfair. It can just feel like this bigger pain for like society that like things shouldn't be this way. Then that can come with it, like feeling angry without anywhere to put the anger. So, and then I'm sure there's a ton more. That's what's coming to me right now. But,
Yeah, I appreciate that.
but I just now playing back what I just said, I see a lot of parallels with being faced with collective trauma too. Reading the news.
Yeah, reading the news. And maybe you could even share more about the way that you work with people, just as a context for this, because, therapists work in all sorts of different ways. There's all sorts of different techniques and approaches, but you can share a bit more about the way that you actually do it, because you spoke to it around even just there being so much value in being present with someone else in their struggle or in their suffering or in what they're grappling with and working with.
Yeah. So think of this short version. The framework or like the kind of theory or the principles that I work with is that we're all wired to heal and feel our emotions, and we all like have what we need to do that. But sometimes it can be overwhelming to do it alone, or scary or whatever. It can be just really hard to do it alone. And so the role that I take as a therapist is to kind of like we co-create the safe environment to be able to feel and process the stuff that was previously too much to feel or to process. And so taking that lens takes some pressure off of me needing to have all the answers to the person's specific problem. It's more about taking it step by step through the experience of what they're carrying, what they're holding, and helping them to remove or kind of massage to the side any blockages that might be keeping them from feeling what they need to feel. And we do need to feel because emotions are physiological, and so we can't like get around the fact that we have to feel something. So I think I'm answering your question.
You totally are. You totally are. And what I heard and what you shared is how the work that you do and what happens in your sessions are experiential at the core of it.
Yeah.
Right? This isn't about thinking our way through a problem, although I'm sure sometimes you troubleshoot things or brainstorm things, but really it's
And there's always other approaches I use too. This is kind of just the core
of it,
of what I strive to do.
And because it's experiential in nature, because you are supporting the person to experience their feelings and really supporting them to do so by walking with them, and really it requires you to also immerse yourself in what they're experiencing.
Yes.
And I think that is a really interesting and helpful jumping off point for especially those of us who are naturally empathic, who are naturally attuned to the more subtle dimensions of life and other people, and therefore are really impacted by what's going on in the world these days, really impacted by having such an up close and personal relationship with the world. Those of us who are naturally oriented in that way are experiencing the suffering of the world alongside her, alongside different peoples and different communities. And so that's really where I was excited and interested to unpack some things with you. And so you were sharing about how in the moment in these sessions, different things will come up for you, feelings of injustice, feelings of helplessness, or just heaviness or weight. And I'm curious then, after the session's over, when you step away, when you take off your therapist hat and go to transition to playing another role in your life, what's that transition like for you? Or what do you notice? Because I'd imagine in some ways you've got certain tools while in the session that you're deploying and you're using, and then moving into another mode, if you will.
Well, it actually, I think, starts with before the session even starts, which is kind of being grounded in some of these principles that I was sharing about, and kind of knowing that, or kind of keeping the perspective that there were things that were out of my control that maybe happened to the person or that the person experienced in whatever way. And I may have feelings about that. And my job in the session is to help them through their emotional experience of whatever we're talking about. And so like if I can keep focused on that and know that is going to be hopefully helpful to this person I care about, that helps me to kind of stay focused there. And as those feelings come up, it's almost like you're meditating while you're doing something. Like I can kind of acknowledge those feelings as they come up and choose to focus on, really being there. And so sometimes that might mean actually sharing what my feeling is with the person in the moment, if it's relevant to what they're experiencing. And so that bridges to after the session, like hopefully I'm already kind of aware of what my feelings are, that I'm not just blocking them out and dissociating. Because to do the kind of work that I do, I need to be present and I need to access my emotions. And so then it's making space to acknowledge, to feel what I need to feel. So if I feel angry or sad about something or frustrated or whatever it is, I have to say, okay, this is what I feel. And I have to like kind of let some of the energy move through me. Breathing. Ideally, I meditate at the end of the day for at least 10 minutes. But sometimes what I'll do is kind of mentally go through each thing I did that day, not just patient appointments, but whatever else I might have done that day, and take a moment to ask myself, is there anything there? Is there anything I'm still feeling about that? Validate it, acknowledge it. Is there anything I need to do about this? Maybe I want to follow up with the person with an email, or maybe whatever it might be. Is there something I need to do or not? But the first step is always, what do I feel? Validate, acknowledge, and then just give it a second to feel it. And try to go through the entire day that way, so that when I'm done with that process, that meditation, I feel a little more clear and I can kind of land in family time or whatever I'm doing next.
Yeah.
But times in the past when I've tried to just like, okay, I'm done with work, I'm gonna go have fun, like stuff stays with me. So I kind of need to do that transition time.
Yeah.
So connecting.
Yeah, go ahead.
Connecting this to the idea of being exposed to collective pain. Like if I'm reading an article about something that's really heavy, like I need to give myself a second to breathe afterwards and kind of validate, acknowledge, feel whatever I feel about it before I just go on to the next thing. And like this is why I think like scrolling generates so much more anxiety than like reading a newspaper, because you can get exposed to like 20 different crazy intense things without any time to process in between. And then you put your phone down and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, what's happening? I'm so anxious. Where did this come from?
Yes, 100%. 100%. What kind of things do you notice within yourself when you don't take that time to meditate and to create space for the energy you just experienced, absorbed, witnessed, however you want to think about it?
Just won't be as present. Like I'll try to watch a TV or play with the kid or, talk with you or whatever it is I might be doing. And then like stuff will come up. Anything from like, oh, I should send that email I didn't do earlier, or I need to fix my calendar, to like, oh, I hope so-and-so is okay. I'm feeling some of the sadness or grief or pain or whatever it might be. Feeling angry at whoever in their life that, I feel angry at. And those things will just come up and take me away. So it's kind of like the worst of both worlds, where like I'm not fully enjoying what I'm doing and I'm not fully like in my best self as a therapist because I'm half paying attention to my patient. So it's like, to me, it's better to give some dedicated time to really reflect on whatever it is I need to reflect on, and then set it aside so I can fully be dedicated to whatever I'm doing next.
Yeah, it makes me think about, just as a base level first step within this work, however we want to define it, is really an awareness that it really, I think, boils down to just a philosophy of emotions. Like, how do we as individuals, we as a society, we as a culture think about emotions, how emotions work in the mind and body, but then also how do emotions work relationally in a relational context. Like, emotions are contagious, right? If I'm laughing really hard, you're more likely to laugh. If you see someone crying, our mirror neurons react to that, right? And are also more likely to make us cry, or at least bring on associated feelings of sadness. And so what I appreciate about the profession of psychotherapy is that there is a real acknowledgement of that. There is, and maybe it's not across the board, but just in terms of the ways that I've seen you trained and the things that I've seen you need to explore and develop for yourself, it begins by just understanding and acknowledging that you are impacted by what you're exposed to.
Yeah.
And I feel like that baseline principle is still new when it comes to collective pain and collective suffering. There is a growing conversation around it, around like the impacts of vicariously experiencing other people's suffering or secondary emotional effects of things, moral distress. But just in this day and age where we have a new type of relationship with the world, there is also an emerging understanding of how that impacts us emotionally. Because if we don't have that baseline awareness, that baseline acknowledgement that being exposed or witnessing suffering, other people's suffering, but then especially suffering in mass, then we don't have a jumping off point for understanding how it affects us.
Yeah. It's huge. I mean, I think about even just like people who go on whatever website and they just are inundated with totally random things, and they could be looking at a cat picture one moment and then someone dying the next moment. And it's really that extreme, and that kind of stuff does impact us. Like, we aren't built for that amount of information overload without any processing. Like, we're built to take in some information and then process it. And a big part of that happens in the emotional realm, for sure.
I almost got this image of emotional whiplash between the cat and the death. And
yeah, shout out Reddit viewers, but that's like something you'd see on Reddit if you're not careful about what filters you're using, or like
what's in your feed. Absolutely. And it's true that we aren't built for it, in terms of we've never needed to build up a capacity for it before, historically. Yet here we are, right here, right now, being asked, it's being called from us to develop a capacity around this.
Yeah.
And I humbly, and it's kind of a guiding light for me within the world right now, feel inspired by just the possibility or the potential that it holds an opportunity within it. That one, we are able to build our capacity for it because we are adaptable and smart and conscious humans. And then even evolutionarily speaking, what's here in front of us is here for a reason type of a thing. Yeah, and that's where I think it's so exciting to be able to pick your brain and say, okay, cool, well, what can we then apply to this other context?
Yeah, yeah, totally. As we're talking, I'm thinking like, there, people have been exposed to too much too fast, and that's kind of can be one definition of trauma. Like think of someone who's getting mistreated or someone fighting in a war. Like they're exposed to way too much, way too fast, and they get psychiatric issues because of it. So, and that's part of the anxiety epidemic that we have right now is our overexposure to things and to horrific, terrible things. Not just cat pictures. If it could all be cat pictures, that might fix some of our problems.
Might be a different scenario.
Cool.
Yeah. So I know you work with patients in all sorts of different ways. How do you, and I'm sure, I'd imagine that this comes up in your sessions sometimes.
All the time.
Yeah. How do you support people with exposure or with digital age exposure?
Yeah. Well, I find that like so many people just are constantly occupied until they get in bed. Or even while they're in bed, they're still on their phone until they put their phone down and they're like, why am I not sleeping? So this comes up a lot with sleep, because sleep is the one time where they try to relax and they can't. And so, but then I think it comes up with people saying, well, I'm just anxious the whole time I'm at home and I can't watch a movie. I can't, So to me, the way it comes up in work is kind of coaching people to take a break and to take a breath and to figure out what's happening internally. And anxiety isn't like something that's happening to you that's an inconvenience. It's something that you are experiencing, that's happening like in you because of some stuff that's going on, some stuff that happened earlier that day or earlier in your life. But it's kind of there for a reason. And so we kind of need to like make space to take care of that part of you that's in need. And so it can be as simple as like put your phone down and like ask yourself what you're feeling, or journal a little bit, or take a walk, meditate, but like just having some kind of break where you can connect with yourself. Take a bath, whatever it is, for each individual person. Snuggle with your cat.
Yeah, but it does give me this image of just a pot that's overloaded.
Yes.
And
like when you're cooking pasta and it bubbles over, and you got to turn the heat down.
Gotta turn the heat down. Yeah, absolutely. And especially when it comes to information and energy and pain, or, I do think about it from this absorption perspective. And that's just because for me, I'm a very body-based person. I'm very empathic. And I'm very relational. So I really do think about things in terms of like interconnectivity and just like this web of relationality that we swim in and that we just are part of it. And so as a sensitive soul, I do see myself as a sponge, and I see other sensitive souls as a sponge, and where, it's a spectrum too, right? There's, I think that's kind of leaning towards one end of the spectrum, whereas then there's like the more stoic, maybe less porous end of the spectrum, and there's all sorts of different combinations of things in between and beyond. But, without creating that dedicated space, whether it looks like meditating, whether it looks like journaling, whether it looks like just going outside and touching grass or petting your cat, or however it shows up and manifests, without doing that, it really does and can overrun us. There is a physiological component and then even like a physics component in my mind, in terms of energy can't be destroyed, especially from in
Yes.
thinking our way through it, right? We have to actually allow it to move and give it the space and time for it to move. And honestly, as a feeler, it's annoying sometimes.
So, I mean, it would be really nice to just like say, I'm watching TV now. I'm not thinking about my patients anymore. Or I'm done, scrolling through Instagram. Now it's time to play video games, But we're human. We live in a physical world and we have physical bodies, and our bodies do things in a certain way. And the way we process emotions is part of that.
And I think that reflects a cultural model that is outdated or maybe only applicable to some kinds of people, where it is more of that computer system robot type of model of thinking about what it is to be human, of where it's like, okay, I'm doing this, now I stop and I flip the switch and now I'm doing that, and instead of understanding the continuity between, that we carry things over from one part of our life to another part of our life, or even the idea that emotions are something that we can turn on and off with a switch, or we can compartmentalize in a way that tames them or keeps them at bay or controls them in some kind of way, when both lived experience and science just doesn't hold up. What we now understand and know about the way emotions work, it's like we need updated cultural models for thinking about these things and then apply them to this new set of circumstances in terms of exposure that we're living in.
Yeah. And sometimes it is like too much to do it alone. And so I don't know what you said that made me think of your circle model, but there are any number of ways. But like if something is too big for you to hold by yourself, that's where you need some other kind of support. You talk to a friend. Actually, a pet, a furry friend can really be enough to help with this. Praying, if you're religious, but having some other to help you hold something that might feel too big. Yeah.
100%. 100%.
Did I say therapy? Because therapy did.
No, absolutely. 100%. And that kind of having an emotionally safe other, or that type of collective containers, collective support, is so needed, because what we are experiencing these days is too much for individuals to hold, for individual people. It's too much for me to hold. It's too much for you to hold. It's too much for Woodrow to hold. It is the scope of it and the depth of it, the breadth of it is too much for any given individual to hold. And I feel a lot of compassion for all of us these days, because I do see, I see a lot of us struggling, I see a lot of us struggling, and it makes sense, right? And so we need these group spaces, these community spaces, these container. Even feel like I'm getting this image of holding like a pit, but in this kind of like dark, earthy, like beautiful,
like a womb.
Like a womb, yeah, like an earthy womb, to like rest in and exhale in and be held and be seen. And when we live in an age where there's so much complexity, there's so much urgency, there's so much collective pain, there's so much fear of getting things wrong, of saying the wrong thing, being on the wrong side of history, when there's such a fragmentation, like a fragmented sense of truth and sense of, like the idea of any kind of shared story or shared understanding of what's going on in the world has been melting and dissolving. It can be a challenging thing to find those types of community spaces.
Yeah.
find those kind of holding cells. Word holding cells coming to me. I don't know.
Well, you were talking about detention centers.
Maybe that was.
This,
But you know what I'm saying, like, but
yeah.
maybe cells like a cellular body, like maybe like, but yeah, it can be really challenging to find the right fit for you, and even take the leap of being like, all right, I'm gonna try out this community space. Is it gonna be weird? Or it's like a high likelihood that it's gonna be weird. It takes a lot, and so I feel for us, and I also know that there are ways of supporting people and supporting groups and supporting and co-creating spaces with people that do offer some semblance of safety. And that doesn't mean that it's going to be all kumbaya and everyone's going to walk away holding hands and on the same page and blah, 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 blah. But it means having the relational and the somatic and the emotional tools to be able to support difference and support divergence and support when it doesn't even need to be as extreme as rupture, or conflict. But yeah, even support conflict, and just support difference. I think that's probably just support diversity of experience. And yeah, I think that's what this day and age is also asking of us.
Yeah.
Too.
So what you're saying is like, we need to be able to support difference, diversity of experience in order for people to feel safe to come out of their little bubbles that they're in and to actually connect. Because if you feel like your difference is not going to be supported, you're not going to want to show up anywhere.
Emotions need safety, right?
Yep.
If it's not safe to go there, right? If it's not safe, and especially as it relates to what's going on in the world, or being politically correct or even sounding smart or coherent or anything like that, going against groupthink in some kind of way, if we're saying here that what's going on in the world is too much to hold, therefore we need spaces, collective spaces to support ourselves and each other. But having spaces that support difference is like an emerging need, if you will.
Yeah. How do we do that?
Well, there's a bunch of different ways to do it, and there's a lot of smart, awesome people doing cool stuff around this.
Circles.
And then, yeah, I've got my circle model that I've been developing out for this purpose too, and gleaning from all sorts of wise practitioner and teachers and space holders that I've been really blessed to be influenced by. And so, yeah, so it's definitely out there, and I hope to support more of it getting out there too. So closing out here, what are 3 tips that you could give someone for when they do step away and create space for what they're feeling from what's going on in the world, what's going on in their life? What are 3 tips for then how actually to work with what they're feeling?
Okay, I'm going to work with the tip metaphor here, see if it comes together or not. Tip of the pen, journal, and just it actually doesn't even have to be physically journaling, but cataloging for yourself, what are all the things that are swimming in me right now, things I'm thinking about, things I might be reacting to, specific feelings I might be having, and just kind of naming, oh, I feel angry about this, I feel scared about that, I feel excited about XYZ, can really do a lot to relieve the overwhelm or stress or anxiety. Tip of the spear, doing something physical, some kind of exercise. So it could be as simple as walking, but if there's a lot of intensity, and a flip side of anxiety can be excitement. And so going for a run, punching a punching bag, doing something with a little bit of edge to it, a little dancing, can really move that energy out. Actually, you could just shake your whole body, can really move the energy. And then last, I'll say tip of the iceberg. Just acknowledging that you're probably not going to figure it all out right now, but just acknowledging, okay, there's a lot here. What can I work with right now? And well, how can I just get myself to a place where I can be okay and not feel like I have to do it all and get, like figure everything out. Just kind of do enough to take care of myself and to live my life.
I love that. I love that. Well,
Metaphor landed.
nailed it. All right. Hey, thanks.
Great job.
Yes. Till next time.
Till next time. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Bye. If you enjoyed this episode exploring collective healing, emotions, the times we live in, then let me know. Subscribe to my Substack, follow me on this podcast. I'd love to connect.